Welcome back to the Green Beans Go channel. It's your host, me, and we're here to talk about Week 10 as far as the end zone is concerned. And here's the deal. I know that the past few weeks have been kind of a mess, so I appreciate you guys sticking around and being patient with me. I feel good about this video. I feel darn good. We're going to mix some things up, but also get some things, tie up some loose ends, if you will. Here's the chart. Again, this is not bye-week adjusted, so some teams are represented underrepresented or overrepresented based on if they've had their bye or if not. Last week we talked about the uphill battle that is handicapping the NFL. It is a sentiment that I will repeat constantly on this channel. It's hard to do. A lot of people will play touchdown bets that are plus EV or that are better to the market. I am not necessarily doing that in this video, but if that is your speed, I recommend you go for it, all right? We used to do some tiers, some first touchdowns and such and the like, and we're not doing it anymore. I'm just going to give you ideas of what I see from the data, and we'll go from there. So you can expect data and some suggestions moving forward. Let's talk about tonight's game. A game that should be good, a game that Vegas predicts to be high scoring. This is a game that we saw October 6th, so about a month ago, and there were like 79 points scored. I don't think it's going to be quite that high, but here's some things I want to talk about from this one. Cincinnati, as far as their passing touchdowns are concerned, they're averaging 20 yards every passing touchdown. In other words, when compared to the rest of the league, their passing touchdowns are longer, big plays, all right? Baltimore is one of the worst at allowing big play passing touchdowns. So, this is kind of an aside. Maybe you want to take Cincinnati receivers to score touchdowns, but there also may be a path to big plays for Cincinnati. There are longest reception wagers that are offered on most books, so maybe you take Jamar Chase longest reception. Maybe you take Andre Iovaskis longest reception. Maybe you like Mike Gesicki, although he is a tight end, but same sort of sentiment. Okay, looking at Cincinnati again, 14 wide receiver touchdowns. Baltimore allows some of the league's worst in terms of wide receiver touchdowns. So Cincinnati doesn't have T. Higgins tonight. He's doubtful, so that does come into play. That is a weapon lost, so this data doesn't tell the whole story. That's what I have for you. Over on the Baltimore side, Cincinnati has 4 allowed to quarterbacks, which is almost one every other game. Baltimore, we know, has a threat at the running back position with Lamar Jackson. He is hurt, so maybe he'll run less. I don't know. It's just an idea. Isaiah Likely is out for Baltimore, so keep that in mind when I have highlighted the tight end spot, but I think Mark Andrews is still a threat, and it's actually better because he has less of a target share with Isaiah Likely since he's not playing. So definitely look at maybe Lamar Jackson, maybe Mark Andrews, maybe a Cincinnati wide receiver, and you see that Derrick Henry continues to score the first touchdown in a lot of games. And when Cincinnati has allowed the first touchdown, which has been 3 times, it's all gone to a running back. So the writing's on the wall there. I'm not going to give any suggestions for New York and Carolina. As you can see, Carolina is a pretty bad defense, but the Giants do not have the best offense. So yeah, there it is. 15 running back touchdowns allowed, which is insane, but Singletary and Tracy have kind of gone back and forth. They've both had their time with injuries. So keep your eye on it, I guess, but I'm not giving you any official leans there. New England and Chicago is kind of the same situation. I don't see a lot in this data that makes me really want to run to the window and place a wager on anybody for either of these teams. I do think New England's offense is better now that Drake May is playing. And if that is your ticket to betting a New England player, then so be it. But Chicago's defense has been pretty reasonable this year. So, again, no place for this one. Buffalo and Indy, 2 defenses that I talked about in my weekly picks video that I think are underrated in terms of just talking points, right? Like nobody really discusses either of these defenses, and I think they're both pretty respectable. If you want to talk about a specific angle, we know that Buffalo's offense is one of the best in the league. Tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, seem to be very popular red zone targets for Josh Allen. The only thing that scares me away is they just have so many weapons. So, it's not like Dalton Kincaid is the first read every single game. There's 3 or 4 other guys who are reasonable options. But Indy has struggled at defending the tight end position. As many tight end touchdowns allowed as running back touchdowns, which I haven't looked through all the data in all these teams, but I would imagine is pretty rare for an NFL team to have that statistic. So that's my one and only lean. If you want to look at something that I find interesting in the data and something that you may be able to do something with, I don't know what that is. Indy is good offensively late in games, but Buffalo gets better defensively late in games. So what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know if it means anything, but it's interesting that you kind of have a tale of two different, bad offense, bad defense, good offense, good defense. What's going to happen? I like the under, all right, as an aside. Denver and Kansas City, nothing in this game speaks to me in terms of plays. I think both of these defenses are respectable, and I think both of these offenses have struggled. So I don't have any official plays in that one. And my computer is doing the thing where it's lagging again, and I'm not going to restart this. I'm going to take a deep breath. If anybody has any idea, all right, my computer is not necessarily the highest grade. I don't know statistics, GPU, CPU, graphics card. I can't tell you any of that, but my OBS is just like, it looks like I'm in oatmeal. It looks like I'm trying to wade through a bowl of oatmeal right now. So I'm going to assume, because it's happened before, that it comes out okay on the other side in terms of recording. But right now, it's horrible to watch myself move in slow motion. Atlanta and New Orleans. New Orleans struggles at defending the running back position. 11 touchdowns allowed. And so maybe it's a Bijan Robinson day or a Tyler Algier day, two guys who are threats to score for Atlanta. As for New Orleans, I know that this number is red for them or orange, so it doesn't really jump off the page, but they do have Derek Carr back. They are missing Shaheed and they are missing Olave, which is not good, but Atlanta's defense has struggled against wide receivers. So if you want to look through some New Orleans wide receivers and maybe find a guy who doesn't have a big name, you might get a good price on him because the matchup is suited for a New Orleans receiver. I think there could be some value there. Moving on to the next one slowly, San Francisco and Tampa Bay. My only suggestion here is possibly a George Kittle touchdown. 6 for the tight end for San Francisco, 4 allowed for Tampa Bay. Otherwise, what really shocks me is this first touchdown down here, this data. Tampa Bay, 7 first touchdowns scored, only 1 allowed, which, again, is very shocking to me. So I think you could probably get a sneaky good price on some Tampa Bay first touchdown scorers just because, they're the underdog in this game. However, they are missing their biggest playmaking threats at the wide receiver position, so that data may be irrelevant for this week. Pittsburgh and Washington, again, not too tempting to me because you have a mediocre offense against a mediocre defense and then a good offense against a good defense. But I do think Pittsburgh's wide receivers have an opportunity in this one, especially with Russell Wilson being in the game. Obviously, a lot of this data is based on Justin Fields, but we know Russell Wilson is the guy leading this team and doing a pretty good job. So they just got Mike Williams. I don't know how he factors in. George Pickens, Calvin Austin has gotten some reps. Van Jefferson? Is that who's on their team now? It's somebody who used to play for I think it's Van Jefferson is there. So maybe even Pat Freiermuth if you want to go a tight end route. So opportunities, I think, for the Pittsburgh passing game and that one. Minnesota, Jacksonville. Bottom line, Jacksonville's defense is worse than we could have ever predicted. Minnesota's offense is pretty darn good, especially through the air, so I think that's the opportunity. Minnesota wide receiver, and I think you could throw a dart at a Minnesota first touchdown scorer and probably be okay. Jacksonville has only scored 2 offensive first touchdown, allowed 7. Minnesota has scored 6, allowed 1. So it looks like a Minnesota first touchdown score could be a relatively safe play. And maybe you pick a wide receiver. Jefferson, Addison, or Naylor could be guys to target in that one. Denver and the Chargers. I highlight the Chargers running back here, but it scares me just because I know the price isn't going to be good. You're going to be probably paying a lot of juice in so much excess that it may not be worth it. But in terms of just scripting out this game, that probably makes the most sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't trust Tennessee's offense to do much in the way of scoring touchdowns. So it's probably a skip from me. Philly and Dallas. Let's talk about this one because it's kind of the same as the last slide with the Chargers. You may be paying too much juice here with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, but Dallas's defense has been bad against the run. So in order to get some value out of it, you may go 2 touchdowns, you may parlay both of them, you may take a first touchdown score, I don't know, a first half touchdown score. I don't know how you want to do it, but I'm going to imagine Barkley is like minus 270, Hurts is probably minus 150. I haven't looked. Those are my guesses. I just don't know if I'm willing to pay that much juice. You may be. I may look for sort of a niche or a sneaky wager involving them to score. Like I said, first or twice, or first and twice, or first half, something like that. Dallas receivers, I think, pose an interesting proposition because we are missing Dak. It's likely we're missing CeeDee Lamb, although I have not heard, but Philly's weakness is very clearly at the wide receiver position. I think Cooper Rush, as I talked about in my picks video, will look to get things going. To kind of save his NFL career in terms of, kind of this backup who has to make a name for himself, and this is his opportunity. So a Dallas receiver, not named CeeDee Lamb, may pose some value. So just an option there, something I like. Arizona and New York, I'm skipping. Again, it's just kind of mediocre across the board. Arizona's defense has been pretty solid. Their offense has been pretty average. Jets defense has been pretty good. Jets offense is working through some kinks. Obviously, I'm going to point you to Jets receivers, but I don't want to highlight it and get too into the weeds there. But, Adams and Wilson are probably the most reasonable picks on this one. Detroit and Houston is the Sunday night game, and Houston has trouble defending big passes. This is kind of the same as Baltimore-Cincinnati. One of the worst teams at allowing big play touchdowns in the passing game, and Detroit is one of the best at big play touchdowns in the passing game. So, again, how you want to look at that is up to you, but Detroit wide receivers should have a somewhat field day against this soft Houston secondary. Excuse me. And Houston, on the offensive side, their running backs, golly, sorry, Joe Mixon seems to be involved heavily in the offense, and I think he should be when you see Houston's offense missing guys like Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. They also, I think, should do their best to make drives long and keep the ball out of Detroit's hands, which means running, which means opportunities. So although defense is good for Detroit, I would lean more running back or on the ground for Houston. Finally, our Monday night game is awful. I wish it would be flexed. Not excited. And I want to point you to wide receivers for Miami, which are not convincing, but you have to keep in mind Tua has not been in the game. He will be in the game. Hopefully there's some health with Jalen Waddle, who's kind of been struggling health-wise, but the Rams do have a weakness at allowing wide receiver touchdowns, so I would look there. I don't love Miami. I don't love their offense. I don't think this data supports, but I think their team is better on the field than this on-paper reflection, just based on them getting healthy. As for LA, again, the juice is going to be too much. Kyron Williams should have no problem finding the end zone, but I hate to even guess what he is, probably minus 200. So I would stay away or do something like I mentioned with Philly and do a first touchdown or a 2 touchdown or a 1st and 2 or a first half, something in that notion. So that's what I got for you. I got to figure out this recording. I got to figure out how to fix my computer. It may be time to upgrade. I don't know. All right. Thank you guys for stopping by, and we'll see you the next time we stop by and do it.